Thank you. My name is Andrew. So a little bit about my background. I studied chemical engineering in undergrad. I went to school with Dave Young, who will be here later. Um, and then I went to law school after that, and then I've been working as a patent lawyer ever since. I worked at a law firm, Haug Partners, worked here, Boston, and DC. We're on 57th and 5th. So I guess that what everyone knows now is where Trump Towers is. We're one block from that. What do? I litigate patents. So I litigate pharmaceutical patents in particular. What is a patent? Why do we care about patents? Patents go all the way back to the Constitution. Uh, Patents were established in the Constitution to promote progress in the arts. So how do we develop and create and invent new and interesting things, new and useful things? And so we have a patent office that issues patents for people to come up with new and useful inventions. Now, why do we do that as a country? Why do we do it internationally? Because that's a way to spur innovation. I think one of the great things that we do in this country is that we have a lot of innovation, and part of how you pay for that innovation is through the patent system. What does a patent do? It gives you an exclusive right to make and use your invention. And so ultimately, you know, folks like you're small inventors. You don't have the commercial ability to go commercialize across the entire country right now. Maybe eventually you would. But if you invent something, how are you actually going to get value out of it? And so how we get value to people is we get them patents. So if you invent it, you go to the patent office, you ask for a patent, and you get a patent. And then that patent, you can actually go and sell that to a bigger company that wants to sell it, or you can enforce your patent against other people. So that's kind of a short of what a patent is. We can get into more detail if you have more questions. What do I do if you're looking to get into patent law as an occupation? You need to have some sort of strong scientific background. I think whatever you do, a strong scientific background is a great way to be educated. You need to go to law school, and then you go find where the work is, and there's great work here in New York. I know Boston is continuing to grow, especially in the pharmaceutical field. And what do? What is my day-to-day? Well, a lot of what I do is I enforce our clients' patents. So our clients already have patents. And so we go out there and, they spend all this time and effort to research and develop a new drug and bring it to the market. And now they want to go and they want to sell it. And I know some people don't like how much they sell it for, but that's what the price is at the end of the day to pay for all that research and development. And some generics want to get on the market. And so a lot of what I do is brand generic fights where it's the brand has the product and they're trying to keep the generics off the market. I've been on the other side also when you're on the generic side and you're saying, no, I can absolutely make that drug your patent is worthless. So those are the sort of fights I have. What I get to do is I get to work with some of the best experts in the world. So the people that are actually going to testify at trial on these things, they're experts. They're PhD doctors that teach in our universities. You retain them, you work with them, they put in reports about what the science is, what would have been obvious, what wouldn't have been obvious. And so I think that's really kind of fun to work with some of the best people that are out there. And then you also have to be able to challenge some of the best people that are out there, because that's what the other side has. They retain who they think are the best people. And you get to go cross-examine them. You get to depose them at depositions. I find it to be a lot of fun. I find it to be intellectually stimulating. I think some of the take-home messages, though, for you are it still comes back to the simple things, like a simple scientific method. Recording things in your lab notebooks. You guys were talking about recording things in your lab notebooks. It's a big deal when you still have these PhDs, doctors at universities that are going in and they didn't keep a lab notebook. Well, gosh, the judge gives them a pretty strong look about, what went wrong. And then also, he doesn't keep a lab notebook, and then he gets his calibration curve wrong. Well, then that doesn't look good. So it's all these little things that add up, and hopefully you're learning the little steps as you go of, how do you record what you do? How do you mark down what you do? And you don't take anything for granted. There's, I think another interesting thing is we talked about what these patents are, and for things that are novel or not obvious. And a lot of times when you hear about a patent, you're like, oh, that'd be obvious. But think about the work that you're doing here. Think about all the work that you put into your project as you're going through it. When you explain to somebody at the end of the day what your project is, they'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I could have done that. But you don't realize that you blew up a board, or you missoldered your transistors, or maybe when you missolder your transistors, you realize that that's actually the way you want it to go. So there's lots of little things along the way, and those sort of little details are what we focus in on, and what I do in terms of getting patents and maintaining enforceability. what do you all want to know about patents? What do you want to know about what I do? What do you guys want to know about your careers? I'm going to open it to questions. Otherwise, I can start to tell you war stories, but I don't want to bore you with war stories about depositions yet, or lawyering. But that's basically what I do. So I'm in court a little bit. It's a lot of typing, a lot of paperwork. You go depose witnesses a little bit. Some of the witnesses aren't really honest with you, and that's frustrating. But you deal with that, and you get good at asking questions. So I'm going to open the floor up to questions. Otherwise, I'm going to go back and start to tell some more stories and some other exciting things, and we can get to enforcers from biker gangs and how that relates to patent law. And we can talk to people not knowing, what it means in their LinkedIn profile when they say they're an expert in something. They're like, I don't know what I mean. But what do you all want to know? What are you curious about? Yeah.
All I know is from Shark Tank, just a pre-nomer.
And that's actually, I'll get to your question, but I think that's a great point. Shark Tank always asks their people, do you have a patent on this?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what's going to stop them from ripping them off? What's going to stop some other competitor from getting there? So that's a great example. Ask a question before I
So I've heard like utility patent or all these like what are the different types of patents and what are the capabilities of each?
So there's utility patents, design patents, and plant patents. So utility patent is the most common patent. That's for something that's new and useful. So whatever is a drone, an electronic device, a computer. That's or even if you do your software programming, that's a utility patent. Plants patents are for how you actually reproduce plants and create a specific type of plant. And then a design patent is for like a specific design. So like I probably bring this with the design of like the cell phone case here would be if this was in fact a design patent. And so it has these corners that are cut out here and there that's made in a specific way with a hard shell on the outside and a soft rubber inside. And so that's an example of a design patent. And so those are the three different types of patents. Most people go for utility patents. And then I guess if you're into agriculture, you do farm patents, but still a lot of those show up with the genetic engineering are still utility patents. And the example with this, I actually did litigate this. This is a spec cell phone case. You patent things as simple as a cell phone case. And so I don't know if you guys are familiar with, there's another company out there called OtterBox. They make a lot of cell phone cases. So we went before the International Trade Commission, and OtterBox is bringing in infringing cases. And so they agreed that they were infringing cases, and then we went in front of Customs, and Customs said, yeah. So, those big giant containers that come off of container ships, we had Customs impounding OtterBox's container ships of the infringing type of these. And so we did that, and eventually parties reached a settlement, but we kept those off the market until Christmas and then the next buying season, and that really drives settlement. And that's what happens with a lot of these things. At the end of the day, everyone says, well, let's come to an agreement. There's a lot of money at stake. Let's get the product out there. And if you go out to like Target, I was there the other day, and in the case, the seal on it on the box is Symmetry product. And that was literally what we had Customs stopping at the border for us and keeping them from importing to the country. So I'll just work in my war stories. But more questions. What else do we have? Yes?
I was going to say, it seems like many companies will make like a patent on like such like very specific things, and like why is that important? Because I would see it as like copywriting a word. Like let's say you copyrighted a word, it's like, isn't that kind of ridiculous because that word's like used with everyone else?
Alright, so yeah, it is ridiculous to try and patent the world. If you're trying to patent something that everyone uses as a basic building block, one question is how broadly do you write your claims? So when we actually patent something, you have a specification at the front that generally describes your invention, and then you specifically claim something. And so you might claim a pair of wire cutters. Well, you're right, it would be ridiculous to just claim wire cutters, because somebody's done it before. And so what's going to happen is if you claim, you do want to get as broad of a claim as possible, because then you can enforce that as broadly as possible. But if somebody's done it before you, then the patent's not going to issue. The patent office will say, no, this wire cutters have been known for 100 years. You've got to narrow your claim. So then you're going to start to say, well, I want wire cutters with a specific rubber grip, and that rubber grip has to have this specific, resistivity, and it's got to have this sort of, titanium, whatever it is. So you keep on adding on limitations, and you narrow it down to what you actually invented. And so that's a negotiation with the patent office to get, what you're entitled to get. And you're right, if you just say any wire cutter, ridiculously broad. And so that's what we fight over, is that lawyers for one side say, oh, the patent office got it right, you know, that was a broad enough term. The other side says, no, 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 somebody's done it, I've seen them do it here in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, this is ridiculous. Your patent's invalid, I don't care what the patent office says.
So the patent's even invalid when, like, you take wire cutters and you put a post-it note on it. It's like, oh, these are wire cutters with a post-it note, so let's get a patent.
Right, so that somebody might try and do that. And so there's two things. One, we worry about whether the patent's valid, and then two, are you actually going to enforce it? Does somebody else infringe? And so if it's just a post-it note, which is, you know, that's an example, well, then somebody else will do something that's not a post-it note. Maybe I'll do a magnet, and then we'll say I don't practice your patent. But yeah, if you're just adding a post-it note, even if nobody has done that before, it can also be invalid for obviousness, meaning, well, someone's made a wire cutter, somebody's made a post-it note, and it'd be obvious to combine those two. And so that's the sort of thing that we argue about all the time, is, you know, what is the appropriate scope? And then it's also, you know, you can't claim every single wire cutter. And so one thing is what you say, your specification, how you describe your invention has to be, you know, sufficient to enable somebody to actually practice your invention. So you can't just generally claim every jet engine out there and say, oh, you know, I'm taking a jet engine that goes faster than 1,000 miles per hour. I have to actually have invented it. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we do fight about, and that is one of the big things we do fight about. Yes?
How close does something have to be to something else for it to be considered an infringement?
Great question. There's literal infringement and then infringement under the doctrine of equivalence. So literal infringement means you look at the claim. So when you get to a patent, at the back of the patent, there'll be a series of numbered paragraphs. And so there'll be claims, and you look at the product here and the claim there, and you see, you know, does this product have each and every one of those limitations? If it does, well, then it literally infringes. If it doesn't, then it doesn't literally infringe. But, you know, lawyers, courts, the Supreme Court says, well, we don't need to be so rigid. So there's also the doctrine of equivalence, which says, well, it's what's literally infringes or something that's equivalent. And what is an equivalent? We spend lots of time and money arguing over what is an equivalent. If there's an insubstantial difference, and, you know, you could go to law school and write a whole paper on what insubstantial difference means. Or if it functions in the same way to achieve the same result, that we consider an equivalent. And so we try and figure out, you know, what is an equivalent and what could be argued to be an equivalent.
Really, but like you have two phone cases that are, like you mentioned, they're very, and let's say they're very similar, like they can protect us from the same exact amount of things, but they look a little different. Is that?
So, again, it depends on what your patent is claiming, but if your patent is claiming that you have, you know, these 4 cutouts on the corners, and a hard shell on the outside and a soft shell on the inside, and those are the only limitations that you have, then I look and I see, oh, does it have a hard shell on the outside, soft on the inside, and 4 cutouts? Well, then that infringes. But what would somebody do if they didn't want to infringe? Well, then they might just have 3 cutouts instead of 4. And so they would try and find a way to get around those limitations. So it really comes down to what is the claim, what is that language that you use. And so part of it is, again, figuring out how broad or how narrow you want to claim it. If you claim it too broad, then somebody's going to have done it before and your patent's not going to be valid. If you claim it too narrow, well, then somebody's just going to do some workaround on it. Yes?
Could you file a patent that's like in addition to something to a different filed patent, or like something that is like the patent but works in a better capacity?
Yeah, so that happens all the time. What a patent is it's a right to exclude. So you're not going to be able to keep whoever the previous person is off the market, but if you come up with a better innovation, something that works better, then you can absolutely patent that. One of the things that I'm working on right now is it's a product called MyDeus. It's an amphetamine product. You guys have probably all heard of Adderall or Adderall XR. There was Adderall XR was out there, and people were taking Adderall XR plus Adderall IR later in the day. And so what the inventors did is they figured out how to do that all together at once in one dosage form, so you don't have to split it apart into 2 parts during the day. So yes, the general knowledge of how to use amphetamine was out there, or yes, the general knowledge of how to get maybe 10 hours of efficacy was out there. But then how do you improve it to get to 16 hours of efficacy? They got a patent on it, and so that's what they have patented, and that covers their product that's out there now. Hopefully that explains your question, but yeah, the world is full of small improvements. That's all we do. There are many people before us that, you know, lots of little building blocks, and so each incremental improvement, each new invention is worthwhile. Yes?
if I want to just like slightly improve on something and I get a patent, can then they like if I have that, can they still like try and claim after that I get mine that like I'm infringing on theirs?
Right, yes, so they can. So, again, if we go back to the pliers, I guess I had wire cutters before, these are pliers. If you're claiming pliers, and somebody, you know, we're going way back in time, somebody invented pliers, and then you invented this protective grip that's, you know, going to protect you from electrocution. Well, if they still have if their plier patent is still valid and hasn't expired, they can sue you for infringement for violating
Even if I already get a patent for the
so,
rubber.
so if you claim, so what a patent is it's a right to exclude. So you can go after anybody that practices your invention. So anybody that does what you claim, you can go and assert your patent.
Even if I've already been approved for my own patent.
Right. So a patent doesn't give you the right to do your invention. What a patent does is it gives you the right to keep somebody else from doing your invention.
Okay.
And so if it's a combination like you were talking about, or an addition, whatever that initial building step is, somebody might have a patent on that.
So could they keep me from doing it, but then like someone else wants to do it, and then could we both?
Right, then you could
try
both
and
sue
stop
them, or
them?
you need to get a license from them. And this is a lot of times when you see, like, you get these standards like 5G or whatever is out there, they come up with a set of patent pools of patents that are all gonna cross-license, because they need this patent, that patent, that patent, and that patent to all go practice this standard. And so you get together and you reach an agreement, because ultimately, people wanna make a product and people wanna make a profit, so people cross-license and reach an agreement that I need this, that, and the other thing.
And
Hopefully,
how long does it take for it to expire?
20 years from the date of filing is a short answer to the question. Yes.
Can you be like selective with who you let use your product? So I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yes, it does, and most of the time, yes. But continue with your
so
question.
if you don't want like someone you don't like to use it, and you start suing them for using it, but then you have a friend and you're like, oh, it's cool if they use it. Is that alright?
Yes, that's absolutely all right. And you can also license it. So meaning you can have these people pay you money to use your patent, and these people you don't want to license it to. Where it gets into trouble is there's antitrust issues, and I think antitrust might be a little advanced here, but we try and avoid having monopolies in this country. The problem with the patent system is it inherently makes monopolies, and so then when you start to pick and choose who you can actually give your product to, that does make a problem. But generally, that's your right to choose who you want to work with. But if you become a big company and then you start to tie it to things like you have to buy our chips in order to use our patents, that's a problem. And then another issue is, again, if you're back with these groups that they all have a standard in terms of what you're doing for 5G, then you have to license it to everybody on fair and reasonable terms. You can't just join the standard and then only license it to these two people. But otherwise, you do have that right to choose. Yes? Yeah.
What's the most ridiculous patent someone's tried to file with you?
What's the most ridiculous patent? I guess
In your opinion.
I know, in my opinion, it's always in my opinion. So the one that was, this is actually how I got the biker gang one. One that, you know, on its face it seems reasonable, when you figure out what they actually did, it was unreasonable. Because they didn't invent it. You have to invent something in order to patent. And so what happened is, there was this product out on the market, and it happened to be an illegal product because it had steroids in it, and they didn't tell anyone. But the product was out there, so if you didn't invent that product, you can't go patent it. But what these people did is they took that product that was out on the market, reverse engineered it, and then said, hey, patent office, we invented this. And that seemed, you know, that's pretty unreasonable, and then you don't tell the patent office what was actually on the market, because that's open to the public once it was already out there. So that one was one of the more egregious ones. It's not one of the ones like trying to patent a swing set anymore, but that to me, in terms of what I do, that was one of the more egregious things. There was something that was literally out there, and how we get to the biker gang was we were on the generic side. We would actually flip the inventor and said, yeah, I did copy it off of that. I reverse engineered that. And so it was a small company, and they had sold it to a bigger company. But it was the small company was a little dodgy. There were two brothers. One was a state senator, so dodgy there. The other one was in jail for like $70,000 of tax evasion on marijuana. So also dodgy. But they sent their mutual friend to go talk to the inventor who they had pushed out of the company. And their mutual friend happened to have been an enforcer from a biker gang, and what was the conversation, whether it was, wouldn't you like to make double, or whether it was a suitcase full of cash. It was ambiguous what it actually was, But that then went on with the ridiculousness of, you know, we knew that he had copied it from something that was out there, he told us, and then the people that now own the patent were sending out an enforcer to try and go suggest that maybe he ought to change his testing. Yes?
Can you like patent an add-on or something and not get sued? Like, you mentioned like the wire cutters thing, you get the rubber grip. If you just patent the rubber grip, is that like, it's like meant for a specific kind of wire cutters, can you get sued
So,
for patenting?
so first of all, for patenting it, you're not gonna get sued for actually applying for the patent if you invented it. If you just, say you just wanna sell the rubber grip that goes on to everyone else's wire cutter, then that's fine. You've got your rubber grip out there that goes on to everyone else's wire cutter. So if I invent a special rubber grip that saves everyone from electrocution, I can go sell that out there, and everyone else can go apply that at home. So generally, you'd be safe, but I could, again, explain 5 different reasons why that's not necessarily true. But yes, generally, if it's not covered, then of course you'll be able to do it. That's a tough answer. Yes?
Is there an age requirement for that?
No. I think you can't work for the patent office, but I don't think that there's an age requirement to actually get a patent. I haven't looked that up recently. Had to know that when I took the patent bar, but I don't believe that there is. I just think, I'm pretty sure you can't actually be working for the patent office.
Or if you don't pay like for the patent, then like someone else could just come and swipe it.
That I don't believe. So what happens is, well, you have to pay maintenance fees. So the government wants to make sure that you actually value it. So like 3 years, 5 years, and 13 years. I don't count on camera now. You have to pay maintenance fees. And if you don't pay your maintenance fees, then your patent expires forever. But I don't know of not paying that somebody can go swipe it. But if you just keep it secret and you don't tell anybody, then somebody else can invent it. So if you invent something and you just keep it in your lab notebook and you sit on it for 20 years and nobody does it, and then this gentleman over here, he then invents the same thing without copying your work, but it happens to be the same thing, then he can go and patent it. So there's, you know, if you come up with something, you should try and you really think it's valuable, you should try and get a patent, or you should publish it so that somebody else can't patent it. And by publish, I mean put it out there. It doesn't have to be in a scientific journal. It's amazing the different things of what is publicly available. And if you make it publicly available, publicly known, like we've gone to like message boards to establish that some information was publicly available from like the 90s. I know that was a long time ago. Yes.
Is there a certain point, like, if you're even paying maintenance fees, can like the government or the patent office maybe take away your patent if they find it's like maybe like you've had the patent for 10 years and then it's like one of those things where it's obvious at that point, so they might take away the patent instead of use it.
Yeah. So there are ways that you can lose the patent once the patent is issued, even if you pay your fees. So one, if you litigate it in court, the courts can invalidate it. There's another process called inter partes review. That's a fancy term, but basically someone else is going to challenge your patent in front of the patent office. So they'll submit a bunch of papers and declarations about why it's not valid, and then you've got to defend that in front of the patent office, in front of a panel of 3 administrative law judges, saying why it's still valid. So there are ways to challenge it. Is the patent office just going to go through and just randomly start chucking things out? No. They're going to require motions and money makes the patent office move, whether it's your money or someone else's money. And then Congress can also always do whatever Congress wants to do. You know, they're talking about, for these pharmaceutical patents, you're only going to have a presumption the patent's valid for the first patent you get on it, and not for the extension patents that are this improvement or that improvement. So there are ways that things can change.
We have time for one more question. Any final question?
Yeah.
So my question is, if I have a patent of something as an American or as an immigrant or whatever, does the government of the United States can take that patent, patented, let's say intellectual property in their own usage and not compensate me because they might use it for confidential purposes or whatever, something like that?
So I think you can assert patents against the United States government. I think it's a little bit more tricky when you do that there, so I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know all the nuances of it, but if you have an issued U.S. patent, you can assert it against the U.S. government, and that is true. And people do get money from the US government. They have an optics case that happens that, so. But if you don't know about it, I guess that's the other thing. If you don't know if somebody's doing it and it's confidential, well, then you're not gonna be able to figure it out to go to CERT. But that's true, not just for the US government, but for any competitor out there that keeps their information secret. If you don't know they're infringing your patent, if they're doing something hidden away in a lab somewhere that is using whatever your patented invention is, and you don't know about it, then you can't assert infringement on that. Hopefully that was helpful, interesting, moderately interesting.
Yeah.
Ready? Thank you so much. So before we all go, just really fast, I know we have a lot of new students coming in this afternoon. So for y'all to know,